Hey everybody, well last time here on the Classic Pay-Per-View Review, I covered WCW's Wrestle War 89. That show marked the end of the Flair Steamboat trilogy and marked the beginning of the Terry Funk-Ric Flair rivalry. This carried through most of the rest of the year for 89. It went through the Great American Bash that year. It went through Halloween Havoc 89, which I've covered before on this channel. That was the Thunderdome cage match with Flair and Sting versus Funk and the Great Muta. Well, this episode here, this show I'm reviewing, it's a classic Clash of the Champions that puts a nice little bow at the end of this epic feud between the Nature Boy and the Funker. I'm talking about Clash of the Champions 9 New York Knockout from November 15th, 1989 at the RPI Fieldhouse in Troy, New York. This show was nominated by Nikki Palmisano over on patreon.com/wrestlingwithwregret. The show opens up with some pre-recorded comments from the competitors in the main event. "I don't want your title, Rick, I just want your pride." By the way, if you like my Terry Funk impressions here on this channel, then I think you might get a kick out of this week's episode. If you don't, my apologies in advance. Jim Ross and Gordon Solie on the call here. It's the first time these two all-time legends worked together. Apparently, Jim was a big advocate for Gordon to be part of the commentary here. Gordon traditionally, play-by-play, not really known for doing color, but he is kind of in that spot here. But if you listen to Jim Ross talk about it, it was Gordon who was had a big lack of confidence that he could do a 2-hour show anymore, could go for that long because his health was in decline, his drinking issue was pretty pervasive. But JR, big advocate for him, really try to help him along the way, and I think these two do have really good chemistry here. 4,000 fans at the RPI Fieldhouse, a little shy of a sellout. This show gets a 4.9 rating, and it's broadcast to about 2.5 million homes. Meanwhile, the World Wrestling Federation is running a replay of the Survivor Series pay-per-view they just did on the USA Network head-to-head with Clash of the Champions. It does not do quite as big a rating as Clash does, but still, it's a pretty bold move to do that. Look at the big steps on that set. It is a fun-looking stage as long as you can see in front of yourself on the way down. They look very steep. Your opening matchup sees the fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin, taking on Animal and Hawk, the Road Warriors. This is not a championship match. It's kind of confusing how this match is presented because technically at this point, the fabulous Freebirds are still canonically the tag team champions. They won the big tournament after the Varsity Club was stripped of the belts earlier in the year. They are about to lose them on television to the Steiner brothers like a week or two after this, but that match has not aired yet. They've got it in the can, so they are still billed as the champions on their name key, but they really aren't referred to as the champions on air. It is definitely not billed as a championship matchup. I think if I were in that era and it were my responsibility to try and figure out, okay, who's the champion during this time, and like, does this live event jive with, the tapings? Like, does that all line up? Because you've seen that over the decades. There's been these times where a wrestler comes out with the belt they hadn't won yet on television, or there's things like that. Like, that happens from time to time. The ball does get dropped, but I feel like if it were me, I would just get so flustered constantly over stuff like this. There'd be a lot more mistakes if I were the one doing that, let's just say. Gotta love the Freebirds coming out to Freebird once again. Road Warriors coming out to their Iron Man cover. Hawk is attacking anything that moves from the get-go. He and Animal do a good job bopping the Freebirds around, just absorbing any of their attacks. From the get-go, though, I cannot stop hearing what sounds like the jingling of the ring anytime somebody hits the ropes. That is very distracting throughout the show.
Warriors stay on the offensive. Hawk of the Road Warriors. An Irish whip that...
Referee Tommy Young gets in Hawk's way as the Freebirds do a lot of double teaming, so up and out of the way he goes. Young calls for the bell and DQs the Road Warriors, and the Freebirds win in a matter of minutes. I'm gonna give it a half star out of 5. Not the greatest opener in the world if you like matches with, cohesive finishes and everything like that. I was so excited for this going into it because, I just watched this great Michael Hayes Lex Luger match at Wrestle War, and I was expecting on paper Freebirds and Road Warriors would be a fun match, and it was until we got that fuck finish. And that's kind of a pattern with the Road Warriors during this time. They were just booked to not lose ever. So you never saw them pinned, you never saw them in a submission. It was always a count out or a disqualification if they ever did lose. And so, not very fun. I mean, the Road Warriors were obviously a very fun team to watch when they were winning and they were beating people up, but those kind of crap finishes never really sit well with me, regardless of the era. But this would set up the Freebirds for their eventual tag team title loss on the timeline to the Steiners. Jim Ross at ringside interviewing Terry Funk and Gary Hart. Funk saying that he and Flair have a lot of differences in lifestyle, but they both love the sport of professional wrestling. Gary Hart putting over the history of the Funk family, their championship record. He tells Terry the people of Texas are watching, don't let them down, and don't let him down. Then after the commercial break, Ross is on stage with PWI's Bill Apter. They're getting ready to tell you the results of the most popular wrestler contest they've been hyping up for weeks on television. Who will win this prestigious award? The most popular wrestler in the NWA is Sting. Comes out dressed in a leather jacket and a sweet bolo tie to accept this trophy. Sting says it feels good. He thanks the little Stingers, and now Apter's got one more award to give out, PWI's Wrestler of the Decade, and it's Ric Flair. Flair coming out to accept his award. He is very gracious about it. Then after another commercial break, we get pre-recorded comments from Woman, who debuted her tag team of Doom a couple of weeks ago at Halloween Havoc. She claims she is the most powerful person in all of wrestling because Doom is on her side. She warns Rick Steiner of a big surprise in store. Then after that video, Gordon Soley wraps it all up by saying, she may be an evil woman, but she sure is pretty. Look at the jackets on these fellas. Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert are in action against the team of... There are some guys in tuxedos who help Woman down the final step, but where were you for all the other steep steps before, guys? Eddie Gilbert starts off with Doom number 1, that's Ron Simmons. He and Rich are working fast around the tag team here, but Doom number 2, Butch Reed, slams Eddie down and the team takes over. Wildfire gets the tag back in after Eddie has worked over a long time. He's a house, well, you know. Rich is going for his Thez press, but Reed catches him. Simmons with a shoulder tackle off the second rope. Doom win. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. You know, Butch Reed, Ron Simmons, at this point, still a pretty much brand new tag team. Not the most smooth or fluid together yet, but give credit to Gilbert and Rich for, getting something good out of them in this relatively short match. Not much of a match in terms of length, but I think it does go a long way in helping just continue to build the aura of Doom with Woman by their side and just showing off how strong they are and how they are kind of a new big bad tag team. Up next, the Louisville Slugger. That's Jim Cornette's interview segment. He brings out his guests, the Steiner brothers. Now, it's actually a pretty significant addition of the Louisville Slugger here on this show because we actually get the beginning, we get the origin, I should say, of the name of one of the most feared wrestling moves around during this time. Jim's asking Scott, hey, what's the name of that newfangled move you do? And Rick says they were watching some scary movies on TV, which gave him the inspiration. Let's call it the Frankensteiner. So that's how that begins. Scott says there's no one that can't suplex. The Skyscrapers are going down tonight. Cornette asking them about Doom and Woman. Scott says, my mother always taught me to never hit a lady, but Woman ain't no lady. Rick wraps it up by saying, yeah, but Woman says everybody wants it. Well, I had it, and I don't want it. Still workshopping my Rick Steiner impression, by the way. Up next, the Midnight Express take on the Dynamic Dudes, and oh shit, Johnny rides the skateboard. He did it. As has been established, Jim Cornette is now managing the Midnight Express, but is mentoring the Dynamic Dudes. From a strictly nuts and bolts perspective, I have no idea what the difference is. It's all semantics, but is showing that relationship. Cornette actually got the Dudes a shot at the World Tag Titles before he got the Express one, and that was much to Stan and Bobby's consternation here. So we have this blow-off match here at Clash. The Express signed up for this match without Cornette's knowledge, and JC is contractually required to sit in a neutral corner and watch this match unfold between his two teams. Cornette very conflicted by this turn of events here. Shane Douglas is working quickly around Stan and Bobby. The fans seem to be very pro-Midnight, who are definitely the heels in this situation. The Express are pulling the hair, and Cornette's even calling them out on it. Johnny Ace with many dropkicks to his opponents. Shane with a nice dive over the top and on to Eaton outside. Bobby putting Shane on the top rope. A superplex attempt is thwarted. Ends with Shane hitting a cross body. It's impressive. Johnny goes for a head scissors, but Stan Lane catches him near the ropes and takes over. The Express goes for the rocket launcher, but it's well scouted. Shane with a proto-Olympic slam. Madness in the ring now. There's mass confusion. A chain's brought into the ring. Cornette gets in and takes it away from the Express. Then he whomps Shane in the back with a tennis racket to the roaring approval of the crowd. Cornette has finally turned heel once again and is officially back with his pals in the Midnight Express, who win the match. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. This was a really good tag team match with a fun twist at the end that the crowd certainly approved of, even if that was kind of like the opposite, I'm sure, reaction they were hoping for. Because, like I said, I've been talking about this before. The Dynamic Dudes, fans can see past this kind of facade they have here. They are not over as a tag team. This is kind of the beginning of the end for them. And with Cornette kind of choosing his side, going with the Midnight Express, and the pop that it got for that, despite the fact that Cornette was the good guy and now he's turning heel. I think it just goes to show you what they thought of the dudes at this point. But still, from a fundamental standpoint, this was a really good match. Up next, Jack Victory in his 4th masked gimmick across 9 clashes. He is the Super Destroyer as he takes on Dr. Death Steve Williams. He was recently kicked out of the Varsity Club, going on his own for the time being a babyface. The match begins and suddenly Santa Claus appears on the ramp. We're a little early for Christmas, but it's Norman the Lunatic. It's that rich WCW tradition of simple-minded characters dressed as Santa Claus. This past Saturday, Dr. Death gave Norman a big old teddy bear, which really peeved off Norman's manager, Teddy Long. Well, it's no Japanese shampoo commercial. Dr. Death lifting the Super Destroyer up above his shoulders and presses him, dumps him out of the ring onto a table outside. Back in the ring, the Oklahoma Stampede is all she wrote. Williams picks up the win. I give it 1 star out of 5. I've made it clear before my feelings about squash matches on like big shows, like TV specials like The Clash or pay-per-views and stuff like that. It's very prevalent during this time here, and there's really no getting around it, it would seem. But at least for a squash match, it was good for what it was. Up next, the Skyscrapers with Theodore Long take on Rick and Scott, the Steiner brothers. As we established in the Wrestle War 89 review, Long was fired as a referee and soon found himself as a manager. The Skyscrapers and Norman the Lunatic were some of his first charges. What a portfolio! Scott shows up on stage by himself. Where's Rick? He's up in the crowd giving popcorn to the fans. What an entrance! They mic'd him for this. Long gets a peanut head chant as Rick has some fun with Teddy's hat. Rick hoisting Dan Spivey up with a spicy suplex, followed by the Steiner line. Spivey comes back a moment later with a tombstone piledriver. That escalated quickly. Scott tags in, hits the Frankensteiner right away on Spivey, goes for the blockbuster slam on Sid. Doesn't get quite all of it though. The Scrapers take over. They try a tandem move or get this dropkick into a clothesline. Needs some timing tweaking. Scott tagging Rick back in. Rick with a hellacious Steiner line and a power slam. Doom runs in, but one of them takes a Frankensteiner immediately. It's total chaos, and the ref has thrown the match out. Woman hits Rick with her shoe, but he no-sells it, corners her. Suddenly in comes this big fucker to save Woman. Beat down on the Steiners until the Road Warriors run in. It's a Pier 6 brawl as we go to commercial. That big guy's name, by the way? Tyler Main. I give this match 2 stars out of 5. I love watching early Steiner Brothers matches from like this period to like early 90s. That is peak Steiners, absolutely. And it's always fun to watch their matches. Kind of like how when I watch the Creed brothers today in WWE. Just 2 hyper athletic, really strong, really surprisingly agile brothers with very little regard for themselves or their opponents in many respects, but it always looks just like brutal and convincing. And that's what the Steiners are here. I guess we can't have any tag team matches with clean finishes on this show, but there you have it. It's a good job connecting the dots on the feuds between the teams. It actually does build up to what's going on at Starrcade in a few weeks, which we see more of after the break here. There's Jim Ross interviewing the Steiners and the Road Warriors. Scott says they're coming for Doom. Animal screams unintelligibly, young Scott taking notes. Hawk describes he and Animal as warped and demented individuals. A lot of mean words thrown toward Doom and the Skyscrapers as they get ready for the Iron Tag Team Challenge at Starrcade. Sadly, a lot of the build for this Iron Tag Challenge that we've established here is going to be for naught come Starrcade because Sid Vicious of the Skyscrapers suffers an injury. That team is out and they're going to be replaced by Oliver Humperdink's new Wild Samoans. In a rematch from Halloween Havoc for the U.S. Championship, Lex Luger defends once again against Flyin Brian Pillman. Like I said, these two fought just a couple weeks earlier, Halloween Havoc, and it was a really good match, one of the better matches of the show. And this match definitely lives up to that, and dare I say kind of expands on it. Pillman giving Luger fits early on in this match, using his agility and quickness to maintain the advantage, hits a big missile dropkick off the top, even attacking Luger's arm. Lex throwing Brian chest first into the turnbuckle and takes over soon after. He press slams him a couple of times, get a body slam on the floor. Brian keeps putting up a fight, makes a big fiery comeback. We get this big cross body, and of course the Patrick flop. Twice Pillman has it won, but the referee is down. Luger steals the ring announcer's chair, dinks Brian with it. We get the cover and the win. Luger retains. He keeps on healing it up. He throws the referee out, using the chair some some more and locks in the torture rack on a defenseless Pillman until Sting makes the save. Luger says he's been waiting for Sting to finally have the guts to step up to him. Sting fires back and calls Luger a big snothead, slaps him in the face, and wants to fight. Luger backs away, Sting's in pursuit. This is far from over yet. But as for this matchup, I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I think it's the same rating I gave Pillman and Luger from Havoc 89. Another really good match with these guys. And, I've been really getting warmed up to Lex Luger. The more 89 Luger I watch, the more I like him, because he's put in with some really good opponents here, whether it's Hayes, whether it's Pillman. Like, you're seeing, I think, the best of Luger here. And so I really wish that I was, coming up in wrestling and watching wrestling at this time, because I would have had a greater appreciation for him than I did when I came into wrestling like a decade after this. We get some more pre-recorded comments from the champion Ric Flair, presumably at a haunted house. He says being made to say "I quit" on national television is humiliating, disgraceful, and the end. He says Funk's got nothing to lose if he says "I quit" since he's not the champion, but even though this match is non-title, if Flair loses, he says he's done. Now, I don't know if that meant, if we're supposed to interpret that as, oh, they're trying to shoehorn this Flair might retire storyline, his career might be over, a little twist if he loses this matchup here. I kind of look at that more as kind of like, I might as well be done. My career might as well be over if I lose this match and say I quit. But regardless, still another great promo by Flair here. Then we go to that main event matchup. 2 words, 5 letters, I quit. Ric Flair takes on Terry Funk. Once again, non-title match. Like I said, Terry turned on Flair at Wrestle War. They fought for the title at the Great American Bash. Flair won. Then they had that cage match at Halloween Havoc. It's come down to this. And Funk has made it very clear on TV that if Flair wins, he will shake his hand and show respect, which is very unlike the way Funk has been acting about Flair the last several months. Terry making his way to the ring alongside Gary Hart and some cowboys. Nature Boy comes out, does his little walk down the stairs. There's just no graceful way to do it, What is this version of the theme he's coming out to, by the way? Because you've got the, 2001 A Space Odyssey, but it's bookended by Fanfare for the Common Man by Aaron Copland, and all I could think of when I heard that was Jimmy King's theme in Ready to Rumble. And I said it 10 years ago, I'll say it again. Jimmy King is far more of a Ric Flair proxy than he is a Jerry Lawler proxy. Funk gets on the mic and says, "You should quit right now, Flair. Let's end the show a half hour early." Flair getting the first shot in on Funk, who bumps wildly for it. These guys are fighting dirty early on. There's choking, there's eye pokes. On the outside, Funk grabs the mic, starts hitting Flair with it. I do like the sign they show on camera here, though I'm not sure if it's meant to be pro-Flair, pro-Funk, or both. Also nice use of Funk's LJN action figure from the WWF on the sign. "I think you should quit, you egg-sucking dog." Flair with the goozle, he regains the offensive. He tells Terry to say he quits. Funk continues to work Flair's neck. "Remember your neck, Rick? I'm gonna break it." Flair takes a pile driver but still refuses to quit. Another pile driver on the floor this time. A table is upended. Flair comes back and drives Terry's face into it. Whee! Flair starts working the leg of Funk. On the outside, Flair with that big walking shin breaker. Funk fights out of a figure 4 attempt. Flair with a suplex onto the apron. He gets that figure 4 in and Terry's mic'd up saying, "I'm never gonna give up. Actually, never mind, I quit." Flair has won the matchup. Funk, true to his word, he shakes Flair's hand, pissing off Gary Hart in the process. He cheap shots Funk. That leads to Flair decking Hart. Then the great Muta and Mr. J, the Dragon Master, run in. And as JR says, "The Japanese have attacked Flair!" In comes Sting to even the odds. We get stereo submissions, but then Lex Luger enters the ring and decks Sting with the chair, payback for earlier. Flair and Sting are laid out. The heels take their leave, and then Lex Luger destroys Sting's trophy with the chair. My God, what a heinous thing. How's he even from this planet? What a sadistic, evil son of a bitch this is. Well, JR obviously didn't say that so much, but if it were about 1999, oh, he definitely would have. Another fantastic Ric Flair match from this era. What else can you do but give it 5 stars? This is just such an incredible year. What a run Flair was on here. His great matches with Steamboat, going right into these great matches with Terry Funk, and this one is really it. I'm not going to say that this match is better than Flair's Steamboat matches because, they're different matches. Flair and Steamboat is a very different flavor of match than you get with, I Quit, because this one, it's weapons, it's physicality. There's no blood, which I think I'm very surprised by, but it's just very physical. It's very violent for its time. The use of the microphone and Terry Funk kind of talking trash the whole time he's doing it, it really elevates that match and just further tells the story, and it's so good. It's so good with these guys. Flair and Funk are at top of their their game here. And yeah, really no notes. Nothing I could ever nitpick about this matchup. It's just a lot of fun to watch. You can watch it multiple times and learn something new about it. It's just go out of your way to watch it because it is that good. My grade for Clash of the Champions 9 New York Knockout on TBS is an A. This is just a really darn good TV special. You might even say that WCW knocked it out of the park with this show here. Obviously, there are a couple of matches that are squashes or have crap finishes, but I think the big standout matches that are on this card really elevate this. And again, for a TV special, you're getting a lot of stuff thrown at you in terms of story, like payoffs, building to the future, building the Starrcade and everything. It's a great follow-up to Halloween Havoc from a couple of weeks ago. And I think that, again, Flair and Funk is just an all-time match. But what did you think of Clash 9 and of this review? I want to hear about it in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, hit that bell icon for all the notifications. Now folks, last couple of years here on this channel, the month of May has been reserved for talking about Hulk Hogan. It's been a Hulkamania celebration the last couple of years, but here in 2024, for now at least, we're going to put the Hulkster off to the side, put him on ice, and dedicate the month of May to a different superstar. We're calling it You Can't See May, and it's going to be all about John Cena. And next week, no 2-week wait, we are going right back to the classic world in 1 week from now to look at Edge Cena Unforgiven 2006. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.